You're squandering your life on computer games. That's what my father, Philip Keene, called my $60 million company. I'm Brandon Keene, 27 years old. And this conversation was unfolding in the mahogany-lined conference room at Keene & Sons Law Group in downtown Chicago. Portraits of 3 generations of Keene attorneys surrounded us in the very room where my grandfather established his practice, and where my father fully expected me to uphold the family legacy. For months, I'd skillfully avoided this discussion. Every Sunday dinner, every family gathering, every time I stepped into this building, the burden of expectation bore down on me, a tangible weight. Philip Keene didn't merely want me to join the firm, he needed me to. The nameplate on his desk read Philip Keene, senior partner, but his true aspiration was for mine to read Brandon Keene, junior partner, by Christmas. The firm needs young blood, he asserted, straightening his navy tie. Fresh perspective. You have your law degree. You've passed the bar. What more do you require? What I truly needed was for him to grasp that Ridgecore Systems was far from a mere hobby. While he meticulously prepared briefs for corporate mergers, was meticulously building back-end infrastructure that automated those very processes, while he meticulously billed clients $300 an hour for contract reviews. My software scanned thousands of documents in minutes. Yet explaining this to Philip Keene felt akin to describing color to someone who had only ever perceived black and white. I appreciate the offer, Dad, but I've got something else going on. He settled back into his leather chair, the same one his father had used. Something else. Brandon, you're 27. This isn't the time for hobbies. This is the time to build a career, a real career. I could have informed him about the Series B funding round that had just closed 3 days prior. I could have mentioned the acquisition offer resting in my inbox from an Austin-based cloud automation firm. I could have clarified that Ridgecore's back-end solutions were already being utilized by Fortune 500 companies he'd undoubtedly heard of. Instead, I simply sat there, observing him gesticulate at the framed law degrees on the wall as if they were ancient battle standards. My mother, Donna, entered with coffee, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. She had been the firm's bookkeeper before her marriage to my father, back when Keene & Sons was merely keen and wishful thinking. Now, she managed the family's investments and ensured everyone understood their place within the hierarchy. "Are you boys discussing Brandon's future?" she inquired, placing the coffee service on the table. "We're trying to," Philip responded. "Your son seems to believe that coding is more crucial than continuing the family business." The way he uttered coding made it sound as though I was engaged in illicit activities. I took a sip of coffee, tasting disappointment. Something shifted in that moment. Not anger, but an undeniable clarity. I had been developing Ridgecore since my second year of law school. It began as a side project to automate document review for a solo practitioner who couldn't afford junior associates. Initially, it was basic, optical character recognition, keyword flagging, simple pattern matching. But the deeper I delved into it, the more I comprehended how fundamentally flawed the entire system was. Law firms were employing armies of first-year associates to perform work that software could handle with greater efficiency, speed, and affordability. Corporate clients were being charged thousands of dollars for processes that were easily automatable. The entire industry operated on inefficiency, and everyone was too comfortable to instigate change. So, I changed it for them. Ridgecore started small, a few solo practitioners, then small firms, then mid-sized corporate clients requiring back-end solutions for contract management. By my third year of law school, my income from monthly software licenses surpassed what most junior associates earned in a year. By graduation, I had 12 full-time employees and office space in the West Loop. My parents were aware that I was doing computer work on the side. They assumed it was a phase, something to keep me occupied until I came to my senses and joined the family firm. They had observed the new apartment, the upgraded car, the fact that I no longer needed financial assistance. But in their minds, none of that constituted real wealth. Real wealth stemmed from billable hours, partnership tracks. And your name, gracing a door. The warning signs had been apparent for months. Philip would introduce me to clients as my son, the future lawyer. Despite my never having expressed interest in practicing law, Donna would remark on how nice it was that I had a little business to play with before getting serious about my career. Family friends would inquire when I was joining the firm, and my parents would answer on my behalf. Last month, Philip had business cards printed. Brandon Keene, associate attorney. He handed them to me as if it were a fait accompli. Just in case you change your mind, he'd said. I'd placed them in my desk drawer and never looked at them again. The true issue wasn't their lack of understanding regarding technology. The real problem was their inability to conceive of success that didn't mirror their own. In their world, you wore suits, carried briefcases, and measured your worth in billable hours. You constructed something enduring, something you could bequeath to your children. They couldn't fathom that I was building something far grander than they had ever envisioned. Ridgecore was no longer just a law firm automation tool. We had expanded into healthcare, finance, logistics, semi-industry, grappling with complex document workflows. We had a solution. The software was handling millions of transactions daily, processing contracts valued in billions of dollars. But none of that mattered if it didn't align with their definition of respectable work. The moment everything irrevocably changed was when Philip presented me with the partnership agreement. We were back in his office 3 weeks after our initial conversation. He had termed it a strategy meeting, but I could discern the thick document folder on his desk from across the room. Donna was also present, seated in the client chair as if this were some kind of intervention. We've been contemplating your future, Philip stated, sliding the folder across his desk. And we've decided to accelerate the timeline. I opened the folder and saw my name at the top of a junior partnership agreement. Not an offer, not a proposal, but an agreement with signature lines and effective dates already filled in. We're prepared to bring you in as a junior partner immediately, Donna announced. No associate years, no proving yourself. You'd start with a 15% stake and full benefits. 15% of Keene & Sons was worth perhaps $2 million. Good. Money, by most standards, more than most people my age would ever see. But I was sitting on a company valued at $60 million, and they were offering me what felt like pocket change. This is generous, I said carefully. It's more than generous, Philip countered. It's family. That's when I finally understood. This wasn't about my future. This was about their fear. They had built something they were immensely proud of, something that meant everything to them, and they were terrified it would perish with them. The partnership offer wasn't an opportunity. It was a life preserver. I gazed at the signature line and realized I stood at a crossroads. I could sign the papers, accept the partnership, and devote the next 30 years of my life to building someone else's dream. Or I could walk away and construct my own. I need some time to think about this, I stated. What's there to consider? Donna interjected. This is everything we've worked for, everything your grandfather worked for. I understand that, but I need to consider all my options. Philip's face hardened. What options? Brandon, you're 27 years old. You possess a law degree from Northwestern. You passed the Illinois bar. What other options could you possibly have? I closed the folder and slid it back across his desk. I'll let you know tomorrow. That night, I sat in my apartment looking at 2 emails. One was the partnership agreement Philip had sent to my personal account with a note that read, "Hope you make the right choice." The other was from Austin, confirming the final details of Ridgecore's acquisition. $60 million to be split between me and my 4 co-founders, with me holding the majority stake. I didn't sleep that night, but by morning, my path was unequivocally clear. The following evening, I drove to my parents' house in Winnetka for what I knew would be our last family dinner for a while. Donna had prepared pot roast, my supposed favorite, and Philip had uncorked a bottle of wine that likely cost more than most people's mortgage payments. They were celebrating something that hadn't yet transpired. So Philip began cutting into his meat. "Have you had a chance to review the partnership documents?" "I have," I replied. Donna leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. I set down my fork and looked at both of them. "I'm not going to join the firm." The silence stretched, held like a collective breath. Philip's knife ceased its movement. Donna's wineglass froze midway to her lips. "I'm sorry," Philip said, his voice flat. "I'm not joining Keen & Sons. I appreciate the offer, but I'm going to continue building my own company." Philip's face cycled through several expressions before settling on a mix of disbelief and anger. "Your own company? Brandon, you're talking about a hobby, a side project. This is a career we're offering you." "Ridgecore isn't a hobby, Dad. We have 43 employees. We're processing documents for clients in 12 states. Last month, we handled contract reviews worth over $200 million. Contract reviews." Donna's voice was sharp. "You're doing paralegal work. We're automating legal processes, making them faster, more accurate, more cost-effective. We're changing how the entire industry operates." Philip rose from the table, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "You're automating jobs. You're putting people out of work. Do you understand that? You're destroying the profession your family built. I'm improving it. You're 27 years old." His voice boomed through the dining room. "You think you know better than 3 generations of attorneys? You think your computer games are more important than everything we've built?" That's when something inside me finally snapped. Not into anger, but into absolute clarity. "Want to know what I think?" I stood up to my napkin, fluttering to the floor. "I think you're scared. I think you know the industry is changing, and instead of adapting, you'd rather pretend it's not happening. How dare you? I think you've been billing clients for work that could be done by software for years, and you know it's wrong, but you can't stop because your whole business model depends on inefficiency." Donna slammed her hand on the table. "That's enough, Ken," I continued, my voice steady, "that you're not offering me a partnership because you believe in me. You're offering it because you're desperate." The words hung in the air like smoke. Philip's face had turned stark white. "Get out," he said quietly. "Philip," Donna began. "Get out of my house." His voice was dangerously calm. "If you think so little of everything we've built, if you think we're frauds and failures, then you're not welcome here." I picked up my jacket from the back of my chair. "I didn't say you were frauds. You said worse. You said we were obsolete." "Dad, I said you were scared." Philip walked to the front door and held it open. "When you're ready to apologize, when you're ready to stop playing with computers and start building a real life, you know where to find us." I walked past him into the cold Chicago evening. Behind me, I heard Donna crying. "You're a disgrace." Philip called after me. "Disgrace to this family and everything we stand for." I turned around one last time. "I'm sorry you feel that way." But I wasn't sorry. As I drove back to my apartment, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: relief. The conversation I'd been dreading for years was finally over. And the worst part was behind me. What they didn't know was that the acquisition papers were already signed. What they didn't know was that I'd been planning this moment since I was 22 years old. What they didn't know was that in 18 hours, I'd be on a plane to Colorado. I spent that night in my West Loop office, not because I had work to do, but because I needed to think. The Ridgecore team had gone home hours ago, leaving behind the quiet hum of servers and the blue glow of monitoring screens. This was where I'd built everything that truly mattered to me. This was where I'd proven my parents wrong. The acquisition by Cloud Vault Systems had been in the works for 8 months. Not because Ridgecore was struggling, but because we'd grown beyond what I could manage alone. Cloud Vault specialized in enterprise back-end solutions. and they needed our document processing technology to complete their automation suite. The deal gave them our software and our team. It gave me enough money to never worry about anything. Again, $60 million. After taxes and employee bonuses, my share came to $38 million. I'd been sitting on that number for 3 days, trying to figure out how to tell my parents. Part of me had hoped they'd be proud. Part of me had envisioned Philip's face when I explained that his son's computer games were worth more than Keen & Sons had generated in its entire 70-year history. But the dinner conversation had revealed the truth. It wouldn't have mattered. If Ridgecore was worth $6 million or $600 million, in their minds, I'd chosen the wrong path. And no amount of money would alter that perception. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Jessica, who lived in Seattle with her investment banker. "Husband, Dad called, said you had a fight. Are you okay?" I typed back, "I'm fine, just family stuff." She replied, "Want to talk about it?" "Not really, but thanks." Jessica was the golden child who had done everything right. MBA from Wharton, married. A man Philip approved of, lived in a house that looked like it belonged in a magazine. She'd never questioned the family expectations because she'd never desired anything different. I sometimes envied her for that. Another text arrived, this one from my business partner, Trevor. Cloud Vault confirmed the wire transfer. Money hits. The account's tomorrow morning. Congratulations, millionaire. I stared at that message for a long time. Tomorrow morning, I'd officially be worth more money than I could spend in a lifetime. Tomorrow morning, Ridgecore would belong to someone else, and I'd be free to do whatever I wanted. The irony was not lost on me. My parents had spent the evening telling me I was throwing my life away, and in 12 hours, I'd have more financial freedom than they'd ever dreamed of. I opened my laptop and started browse real estate websites. Not because I needed to buy anything, but because I could. I looked at houses in California, condos in Manhattan, estates in the Hamptons. But what caught my attention was a ski lodge in Aspen. 5 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, ski in, ski out access to Snowmass Mountain, the kind of place I'd fantasized about owning since college. The listing price was $2.8 million. I called the realtor. "Mr. Keen, it's almost midnight. I know I'm interested in the Snowmass property, the lodge on Elk Camp Circle. That's a beautiful property. Would you like to schedule a showing? I'd like to make an offer without seeing it. I've seen the photos. It's $2.5 million cash, closing in 2 weeks." There was a pause. Let me make some calls. An hour later, I owned a house in Colorado. Just like that. No mortgage applications, no financial reviews, no waiting for approval. I wanted it, so I bought it. That's when I understood what real freedom felt like. The next morning, I packed 2 suitcases and drove to O'Hare. My flight to Denver departed at 11 a.m. And I'd arranged for a car service to drive me up to Aspen by sunset. To be in my new house watching snow fall on mountains. I now owned a piece of didn't call my parents, didn't text Jessica, didn't tell anyone where I was going or when I'd be back. For the first time in my adult life, completely disappeared. The lodge was everything the photos had promised. Timber frame construction, floor to ceiling windows overlooking the ski. Runs a stone fireplace large enough to stand in. The previous owner had left it furnished, so I had everything I needed. Leather couches, king-size beds, a kitchen stocked with expensive appliances I'd never use. But what I cherished most was the silence. No phone calls about billable hours. No conversations about partnership tracks. No pressure to be anyone other than exactly who I was. I spent the first week skiing every day and reading every night. I'd brought a stack of books I'd been meaning to get to for years, plus my laptop in case I got bored. But mostly, I just existed. I woke up when I felt like it, went to bed when I was tired, and ate whatever sounded good. By the second week, I was starting to contemplate what came next. The Cloud Vault deal included a 2-year consulting agreement, but that was primarily to ensure our team remained stable during the transition. I could work as much or as little as I desired. On day 10, Trevor called. "How's mountain man life? Treating you? Can't complain. How's the transition going? Smooth. Cloud Vault's integration team knows what they're doing. Most of the staff are staying on, and they're already talking about expanding the Chicago office." Good. That was always the plan. Brandon, can I ask you something? Why didn't you tell anyone how big this was? I mean, your parents, your family's $60 million isn't exactly pocket change? I looked out at the snow-covered peaks surrounding my lodge, 'cause it wouldn't have changed anything. They don't care about the money, they care about control. Still, when this hits the business press, they're going to find out anyway. That was true. The acquisition hadn't been announced yet, but it would be soon. CloudVault was a publicly traded company, and deals of this magnitude required SEC filings. Within a few weeks, anyone who bothered to look would know exactly how much Brandon Keene's computer games had been worth. Let them find out with everyone else, I said. Not sure. Call, but when they do, you might want to have your phone turned on. After we hung up, I sat by the fireplace, pondering what Trevor had said. My parents would eventually discover the truth. Jessica would likely call. Philip might even swallow his pride enough to reach out, but by then, it would be too late for apologies or partnership offers. By then, I'd be precisely where I wanted to be, far enough away to see everything clearly. Wealthy enough to never need their approval, and free enough to build whatever came next. I opened my laptop and began sketching out ideas for my next company, something grander than Ridgecore. Something that would revolutionize entire industries instead of merely improving them. Outside, snow began falling again, and I realized I had never been happier to be anywhere in my life. 5 weeks after I'd left Chicago, Trevor's prediction came true. The CloudVault acquisition made the Chicago Tribune business section on a Tuesday morning, complete with my photograph and a headline that read, "Local tech founder sells startup for $60 million. I was having coffee on my deck, watching skiers navigate the morning runs, when my phone started buzzing. Jessica called first. "Brandon, what the hell? $60 million. Are you serious? Morning to you, too, Jess. Don't morning me. Dad and Mom are freaking out. Someone at the grocery store showed them the newspaper. Mom called me crying. Crying about what? About how they had no idea. About how they spent weeks trying to convince you to take a junior partnership while you were sitting on this Brandon. They feel like idiots." I sipped my coffee and watched a red-tailed hawk circle above the tree line. They should feel like idiots. That's not fair, is it? They called my life's work computer games. They said I was a disgrace. They threw me out of their house. Jessica was quiet for a moment. "Where are you, Colorado? Are you coming back eventually?" "Brandon, they want to apologize, do they? Or do they want to make sure they're still in the will?" That was harsh, but it was also true. My parents had spent years dismissing everything I'd built. And now that they knew it was worth more than their entire family legacy, suddenly they wanted to talk. My phone buzzed with another call. "Philip Keene, I have to go." "Jess, answer it, please. I'll let it go to voicemail." Then I turned off my phone and went skiing. 2 months later, I flew back to Chicago. Not because I missed it, but because I had business to conclude. CloudVault wanted me to consult on their next acquisition, and I needed to check on my teams. Transition. I met Trevor for lunch at a downtown establishment, 6 blocks from where Keene & Sons had their offices. The irony was not lost on me. "How are things with your family?" he inquired. "Complicated. Have you talked to them?" "Jessica keeps trying to play mediator." My parents sent a letter to my old apartment. Very formal, very legal. Basically, an apology. That read like a settlement offer. "Are you going to respond?" "I don't know, maybe." The truth was, I understood why they'd reacted the way they did. In their world, success looked like partnerships and corner offices and your name on a door. They couldn't have imagined that their son would build something grander than anything they'd ever dreamed of. But understanding didn't equate to forgiving. After lunch, I drove past their house in Winnetka. Same meticulously manicured lawn, same luxury cars in the driveway, same pervasive sense that everything was exactly as it should be. Donna was in the front yard planting flowers, and for a moment I considered stopping. Instead, I kept driving. That evening, I had dinner with Jessica and her husband at their downtown condo. We talked about everything except the obvious until finally she couldn't hold back anymore. They miss you. They miss the idea of me. The version of me that would have made them comfortable. Maybe. But they're proud of you now. Now that they know the price tag. Is that really what you think? Shh. I looked out at the Chicago skyline. All those lights representing all those lives. All those dreams. I think they love me. But I also think they only respect success they can understand. Building something they couldn't ignore had been worth every difficult conversation.